because I'm not going to take these things laying down anymore. I'm not just going to let people do whatever they want to me anymore. You're not going to abuse me anymore. You're not going to block my projects and lie to my face. Like, these things are not happening anymore. I'm at a point where I've been polite and patient for so long, and I'm just not going to lay down and take it anymore, and I don't have to. Aloha, universe. My name is Amanda. I'm the proud owner of a gourmet mushroom farm located in South Kona, Hawaii, called Mermaid Mushrooms. This is a story of triumph and sadness and success and failure. It's important for me to stand in my truth, and it's about time that I shared my perspective with the world. And I do look forward to sharing that with you. Our story begins in 2017. I came to Hawaii with $15,000 and a suitcase full of books. Literally the clothes on my back. 2017 and 2018, I worked various jobs. I worked at Denny's. I was a manager and a server. And I also worked as a mechanic. One day after a particularly rough day at Denny's, started to come home. I had a brand new Subaru WRX Premium. It was a stick shift. It was a very beautiful car. And I got into an accident. I was not at fault. I was actually at a complete stop. Ended up getting hit by two separate vehicles. I was injured after that. And I knew that the accident wasn't my fault, and I knew I was going to get money from the accident. I started to really be open and receptive to a business idea. I knew I wanted to take the money and start my own business so that I wouldn't have to work for people anymore. I was convalescing, so I was spending a lot of time on the internet, and I was growing mushrooms in my closet at the time, and I saw Paul Stamets on Joe Rogan, and there was also another YouTuber called What the Fungus, and I was watching all of his videos at that time, and I just thought to myself, like, you know what? I can do that. After seeing the podcast and really thinking, like, you know what? I could do this. I began to have this overwhelming feeling that, like, this is my destiny. A lot of people want to start a mushroom farm. For me, it was a step further. This is who I'm meant to be. It was such an overwhelming feeling of, I have to do this. I still have that feeling within me. When I had this epiphany that I'm gonna be a mycologist, I'm gonna study fungi and grow mushrooms, while I was building and designing my farm, I went back to school to study biology in the classical sense, just so that it would make me better at my career. So 2019, I get the money. I ended up investing about $12,000 into my initial mushroom grow. I ended up erecting a whole room and, partitioning off part of the garage for a lab. After building and doing a great deal of trial and error, I finally started going to the farmer's market in August of 2020. And just around the time that I started selling mushrooms, there was a local business plan competition that many people had recommended to me. So, truth be told, I actually wrote the business plan the night before the deadline. Like all great things. And I made it to the next round. There were 35 other businesses. I made it to the next round. There are actually 3 total rounds. The first one was just the paper entry. And then the next 2 rounds were actually Shark Tank-like presentations in front of investor-type judges. That feeling when they announced me the winner, it was excellent. And I actually won $25,000 from this competition. Oh, and I won a free year of college from the local college system. Right after this competition, and I very publicly won this competition, I got a lot of attention. Not necessarily the good type of attention. And so this was my first experience in what you would call corporate jealousy. So I was on the front page of the page. I don't know if it was the front page. Okay, let me just reel that in a little bit. But I was in the public, at least on the internet and in the newspaper, with me and like pictures of the mushrooms that I was growing beside me. Hawaii, they only allow certain organisms that they feel are not a threat to the environment. There were a few mushrooms that I had cloned locally that I had either found at a farmer's market or found in the grocery store. For example, the lion's mane. I was cultivating it and I was being very public about cultivating it. A few people actually reported me to the Attorney General's office. Like, granted, this is not an illegal mushroom. Like, this is lion's mane. To create a whole outline of this organism and submit it to what's called the Plant Quarantine Branch of Hawaii. It's 7 pages, and after 9 months, that permit finally got approved, and I was able to legally grow lion's mane. But after this competition is when I really started to experience corporate jealousy in local mushroom cultivation. But I got a lot of weird phone calls after that competition, for sure. I still have the big check, like, in my office. When I won the competition, I think it was in October of 2020. And after that, a couple months after that, it was in the Hawaiian Airline in-flight magazines called Hanaho. And they did a whole story on mushroom growing in Hawaii. And I was on, like, you know, the local public TV, not like TV, but like, you know, local public TV. I continued to progress after that. Later that year, in 2021, I actually received an investment in my company. So I sold a small portion of my company for an investment, and I moved into a 3,000 square foot warehouse. When I got into this warehouse, I was so excited to build my dream farm. I designed everything from top to bottom, all of the systems, like the dimensions, everything I designed myself. And it was just a blank canvas for me to fill with my ambition and my dream. I do have experience in quite a few different trades. Know basic carpentry, I know basic electric. I did go to school for automotive technology, so I have a few trade certificates in automotive technology. I also went to school and I got what's called advanced computer usage and applications. I have a breadth of knowledge in other areas that I was able to apply to my mushroom farm. And after I built the farm, I had so many people come in here and be like, "Oh, did your boyfriend help you do this?" No, I did this. I did. Like, not my boyfriend didn't, you know, tell me what to do. I designed all of this. It came out of my brain. It didn't come out of anyone else's but mine. And it's really offensive. Just the misogyny. How insulting. When I leased the warehouse, a solar system was like one of the first things on my mind. You walk right into the building. When you look to the right, the electrical panel is right there. It was one of the first things I asked. Is there a solar system on the building? Property manager says no. I said, well, we would absolutely need to install a solar system. He says, let me check with the owner. Okay. He did come back and say the owner said no problem. If you pay for it, or if you get a grant, you can absolutely install a solar system. Okay. Awesome. After I leased the warehouse, this was in August of 2021, I did this like initial build out of the warehouse where I essentially got like 2 of the, you know, we have 4 grow rooms total. I got 2 of the grow rooms done, obviously the lab and the incubation, and I started cultivating mushrooms on a much larger scale. it was hard for me once I reached a certain level of production to continue doing those projects. Like, once you reach a certain level of production, you're just going, the mushrooms don't wait for anyone. Nobody. The last 2 grow rooms I didn't get completed right away. The rest of 2021, we do the build out. I ramp up the production, 600-700 pounds a week. I was going to 4 different farmers markets every week. I had distributors buying thousands and thousands of dollars of mushrooms every week. I was on this upward trajectory. I wanted to make something of my own. I wanted to control the content that was coming out of my business. I didn't want someone else to come in and put their own perspective on my business. Like, I wanted to share my perspective. And I had this vision of me laying in a field of pink oyster mushrooms like they were flowers. I just had this vision, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And so I grew a lot of pink oyster mushroom, and I teamed up with a local artist and a local photographer, 2 very, very talented people. Noel Badges-Pugh and Noel have had an amazing artistic relationship. It's mainly the mushrooms influencing him to create art. I don't think I have much to do with it. And the photographer for the shoot is, his name is CJ Kale. It's the most amazing, beautiful stuff. I so encourage you to go check out, actually, both Noel and CJ. So Noel Badges-Pugh and CJ Kale. So there was me, the model, and the cultivator of the mushrooms. Noel actually painted my naked body. CJ Kale took photographs. I made a piece of artwork. There's 2 main images that came out of this. One I call Pink Oyster Pixie, and one I call Sleepy Pixie. So we created this piece of art at a very pivotal time in my life. You know, this was when I was on top. I was doing amazing. I was making loads of money. I was banging, like, you know, I mean, I still look good. I looked good. Good. After this piece of art, things started to change. We are going to do a behind the scenes of Pink Oyster Pixie. I have loads and loads of video, mainly of me naked. You know, but, you know, we'll blur some things out for YouTube, but special thanks to Suzette Kale with the assist. She was basically like the art director. Suzette kept everybody in line. Suzette, you know, made everything look beautiful. I mean, without Suzette, it wouldn't have been the piece that it is. The next part of the story is going to get a little hard, guys. I want to warn everyone that if there's some sensitive things that you might not want to hear, things that might be triggering to you, or you can skip past my experience during this time. And it's totally your choice if you want to listen. There are certain things that need to be shared in order to really understand my experience. Now, the hard part of the story. If I could explain how not excited I am to tell you this, I'm not, but I need to get it off my chest, and it's important. It's very important for me. So after I made that art piece, I was doing so well, and I'm like, you know, I was alone. What am I really doing this for if I don't have anyone to leave it to? I don't, you know, I was just in this mind frame, and I was at the farmer's market, Maku'u market, and I met a man. First few weeks that we were together, he spent loads of money on me. He bought me a washer and dryer and a brand new bed. I used to sleep on the pull-out couch in my warehouse. I had like an $800 Valentine's Day dinner. I'd never heard the term love bombing before. I didn't know what that was. The terms narcissism, gaslighting, like I didn't even, these things were not a thought in my mind, and I was a very naive young woman. I was still very naive. This is maybe a story for another time, but I was sheltered from the world for many, many years. I still thought that everyone had great intentions. I was very wrong. It graduated from us getting in arguments and screaming matches to physical violence and a lot of other very disturbing things. And by the time I got him out of my house, I was already pregnant. This man told me that he wanted to start a family. He told me that I was the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, and, you know, everything, I'm so smart, and all of the things that I wanted to hear. On the surface, everything looked good. He owned property, he had money, he owned his own truck outright. This is a very nice older man that wants to take care of me and sees me for this special woman that I am and for everything that I have to offer. And I believed who he presented to me was who he was, and that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. I was not really prepared to handle the level of abuse. I didn't know what to do. And I was trapped. I just felt so trapped all the time. Anytime I voiced something that I didn't like, it was brought back to the things that he bought me. You know, I bought you this, I bought you that, blah, blah, blah. And after episodes of abuse, and I'm not gonna detail that here because I don't want to trauma dump on people. After episodes of abuse, it would always turn to that I'm sorry, I love you so much, look at everything that I've done for you. I didn't know how to break free of that. Like, I had never been faced with this type of situation before. Everything looked so promising, and yeah, there were like red flags, but I mean, the dude was dropping like $5,000 on me in like 2 weeks. I completely ignored that. I completely ignored it. I knew the instant that I was pregnant. I could feel my baby's presence within me immediately. I could feel his spirit. I could feel who he was. Having an abortion was never a thought in my mind, ever. Even though I knew I didn't want to be with this man, I thought it was a miracle. I thought it was, you know, the most beautiful thing that could have happened in my life. And I was so excited that I was pregnant, and I knew that I was gonna have to do it alone. From day one. When I found out I was pregnant, and I told the baby's father, this is what he said.
What, are you stuck on some moral bull? Kill the baby! It's not gonna happen that we're just gonna stop talking. You're pregnant with my baby. What don't you get about how you're ruining my life? And there's no way around it. If you keep this baby, both our lives are ruined.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna play the other ones for you. This began a very long, drawn-out situation where he basically tried to terrorize me into getting an abortion. He offered me money. He told me he wanted to go out and party more, and I wanted to stay at home. I didn't want to do that. When the money ran out, it was all terrible from there. I would say something about me struggling or whatever because I was pregnant. It would spark a whole rant about how I should have an abortion. It's very difficult, to deal with. The whole time that I was pregnant, I had to protect my baby from his father. And even up until you know, I was about to give birth. He was still telling me about how I should have had an abortion.
You wanted this, and I told you this is going to ruin our relationship. This is going to ruin everything.
Baby.
This is going to ruin your life. You'll probably lose your business over having a kid. I warned you, but you don't listen to me. What can you do differently?
Well, you know,
forward, Amanda?
I kept the baby, okay? Like, I kept it. So...
Well, then, be grateful for it. I don't want to hear another complaint.
I am
about...
extremely
Amanda,
grateful.
You're interrupting me. I don't want to hear another complaint about your pregnancy. I don't want to hear another excuse about your bad behavior because of the pregnancy, because you were so hell-bent on this. You wanted this so bad. You wanted to keep it so bad in spite of my warnings. So you do not get to complain. Are we clear? You have to be stoked. Stop being so much of a resistance to the flow of life. You resist everything I say all the time. You resist everything I do.
It took so much of my energy to just try to survive this situation. And I didn't do it very well. I didn't handle the situation very well. And all of you, you know, women out there that you have, like, really supportive men that help you through your pregnancy, like, I so envy that. Sorry. But, like, I had no one. And I was running a business and everything depended on me, and a lot of the equipment, you know, nobody else knew how to fix. And so it was still up to me to maintain all of the maintenance and continue the building projects on the warehouse, even though I was pregnant. And, you know, there are pictures of me 8.5 months pregnant on the top of a huge ladder, you know, fixing the float valve and the bagger because nobody else knew how to do it. Like, nobody else knew how to do it. Who's gonna do it? Like, who's gonna do it but me? I worked myself so hard while I was pregnant. And I just really tried to, like, draw that strength, and the whole time in my mind, I'm like, you know what, I'm the strongest person I know. I can be a good mother to my baby and own a business, and I can do it all by myself. Like, that was my frame of mind. So around, I would say September, August, I was approached by a private foundation that wanted to give me a grant. And this grant was for any type of capital expenditure. It was a private foundation that wanted to give grants to farmers. So I asked for a solar system. You know, I had spoken with the owner of the building and the property manager, and both of them had told me that yes, if I got a grant for the solar system, I could absolutely install it. So that was in August or September of 2021. I kept trying to contact them about this solar system. The next video that I do is going to be completely on this issue. So I'm going to really explain what happened with the solar system and how I ended up really losing a lot of money because of their negligence on this project. The reason I'm saying this is because I'm going to talk about the solar system quite a lot, and it's going to connect all together eventually. So I'm going through this issue where I'm going to be a single mother. I know I'm going to be a single mother. I have a business and a dream. I didn't want to give up one for the other, and I didn't feel that was necessary. So I continued on, and I got this grant, and I was like, wow, I'm going to be able to eliminate my electricity costs. It's going to revolutionize my business. And at that time, I needed that money. I needed to save the money that I was going to be saving with the solar system. I gave birth in January, I spent 36 hours in labor. And I remember I dropped, they had me filling out paperwork, and I dropped a pen on the ground. Immediately, I just dropped down and crouched down to my knees, and I pick it up. The nurse looked at me like, wow. And I was like, I thought in my mind, I'm like, well, who else is gonna do it? Like, I didn't have a man around or anybody really around to help me do simple stuff like that. I just thought, like, well, who else is gonna do it? I mean, obviously she would have in that moment, but in labor, I actually even took a call about the solar system in the hospital with the lady that was doing the grant, and we were having a lot of issues getting the landlord and the property manager to cooperate. So at this point, we were already having problems trying to pin them down and get answers. I gave birth to my baby boy. His name is Aragon, and he's asleep right now. I'm watching him. But he's the most beautiful little boy I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I've never seen a cuter baby before, but I could be biased, obviously. And he's just so full of light and joy, and he makes my life worth living. I was up working a week after I gave birth. I actually would have got up and done some things sooner, but my feet were too swollen. I literally couldn't walk around. But I felt great after I gave birth. It was very, relieving that, now I can kind of move around freely. But the first month that Aragon was alive, his father had a mysterious illness and couldn't help with the baby. And when he was over here helping, it was a very frightening experience. Around the time that I gave birth, I couldn't keep my eye on everything anymore. I had a newborn baby that needed to feed off of my body. My baby needed to be held all of the time. Like, if you set him down, he would immediately scream and cry. It was a difficult transition for me. And a lot of my key equipment, I couldn't keep up. I thought that I could do it. I thought that everything will be fine, and I ended up having a few consecutive months of crop failure. And I burned through all of my savings. I've racked up every single credit card in an attempt to get myself out of this situation. And it was very disheartening because, I had just had a baby, and I was up a week after giving birth, and all of that hard work, essentially went to nothing. I gave birth in January, so Aragon was born in January. I had already been asking about the solar system since September, at least. And again, I really needed that money. And instead of, buying more materials or having my employees work, I would make sure that I paid my rent. And I paid the electricity. Looking back, I should not have done that. I should have used that money to buy supplies and pay my employees. I emailed and I texted and I texted and, I kept getting one-sentence answers. We were gonna talk about this later. Because of that, and because of, the fact I had a baby and I had a lot of crop failure, I just began to sink backwards, and I was really worried about making sure I was caught up on my rent when, these people, they didn't care about me. They saw that I was a single woman, I had a baby, and I had a business, and they didn't believe in me anymore. Why can't they just answer? Why can't they just say yes or no? And my electric bill was $2,000 a month, so between $1,500 and $2,000 a month. My rent's $4,000. I mean, 2 to 3 electricity bills is one rent. I needed that money. I can't even express how much I needed that money. In the early days when Aragon was of newborn. A lot of things were really difficult for me. Going to the store, trying to find time to take a shower. I lived off of instant oatmeal, cereal, and muffins during this time because I didn't have any time to cook. I'm running a business and I'm taking care of a newborn baby. Like, I couldn't even cook for myself. That was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Like, throughout 2023, I began to sink farther and farther backwards from my initial crop failure, and I just couldn't get it going again. In about November, I started asking around for money. I asked some organizations if they could loan me money. I tried to find someone to sell equity to. People that once believed in me, they didn't believe in me anymore. In their eyes, I wasn't the same person. Like, nobody really had confidence in me anymore. I eventually got in contact with the USDA. The government actually protects our farmers. I was able to get this loan because of a natural life event that set me back. And it was essentially an operating loan, but most of the loan went to refinancing my other debt and paying my bills. You know, paying the bills that I had fallen behind, and I had fallen behind quite a bit. I had started to apply for the USDA loan in November. I'm not quite sure what happened. They said that it kind of got caught up in some bureaucratic situation. I didn't actually get the loan until February, so it was a very long period, which is abnormal, where I continued to sink behind. I asked for a certain amount, which the certain amount was like what I needed. It wasn't what I wanted, it was what I needed. And I got 2/3 of that. The loan came in late, I didn't get as much as I wanted, a day late and $1 short, essentially. I got this USDA loan. I originally thought that my landlord was not wanting to do the solar system because I was behind in my rent. So I was like, great. After I get this loan, write them a big check, and they'll be totally on board with the solar system. It can move forward. Well, that's not what happened. I wrote them a $21,000 check, and I immediately left to go on vacation. When I came back, I handed them another check, and they basically told me, well, you need to live up to your obligations. It's like, dude, this $21,000 check, like another $6,000 check, I'm confused. By the time that I paid them the $21,000, I had spent that much money in electricity since receiving the grant. If they had just let me get the solar system, and they didn't give me so much resistance and negligence, I would have been able to just save that money and apply that money to my business, and I wouldn't have been so behind. You know, would I have needed to get a huge loan from the USDA? I'm not sure. But it became really apparent to me at that point that they didn't have the intention of following through on their obligation to me. That was disheartening too, and we'll talk about that. Ugh. So I've been abused by this man. I've had to raise the baby by myself. And no one believes in me anymore, including the landlord that I'm paying my rent to every single month. That looked me in the eyes and shook my hand and told me that I could install a solar system. Very depressing. Very depressing. When Aragon was about 6 months old, I started having episodes, and the doctor, was like, well, you have postpartum depression. I believe that the postpartum depression settled into a more long-term depression. Aragon is 2 now. I'm finally starting to feel better. I'm finally starting to come to terms with what happened to me. And I'm finally starting to be able to move on. His father started to show more support. For a while, we had an okay co-parenting relationship. Anytime he has the baby, I have such an extreme amount of paranoia and anxiety. Like, in order to heal, I can't be involved. I don't think that he has a right at all to be Aragon's father. I don't. He didn't want the baby. You know, why am I obligated to make him, you know, or let him be a dad? Like, he terrorized me my entire pregnancy, to the point that I have consistent, ongoing mental issues because of that. But I'm probably gonna get some death threats from posting this video. If anything happens to me, you know who did it. Ugh, my life. So I had been waiting for a mediation with my landlord. I kept asking for a mediation, The general consensus that I received from the mediation was they are taking the stance that they never said that I could install a solar system. They said they would think about it. It was very disappointing, especially after someone looks you in the eyes, shakes your hand, and tells you something, and they put all this wording in the lease to make it seem like, yeah, absolutely you can install a solar system, and then to have them block the project for 2 years, like for 2 whole years, while I have, you know, while I'm the single mother to a newborn baby, while I'm going through all these struggles, personally and financially, and to have them not help me and just ignore me, and then tell me that, oh, well, we never said that. Like, you know, it's part of the reason why I'm coming on the internet, because I'm not gonna take these things laying down anymore. Like, I'm not just gonna let people do whatever they want to me anymore. You're not gonna abuse me anymore. You're not gonna block my projects and lie to my face. Like, these things are not happening anymore. I'm at a point where I've been polite and patient for so long, and I'm just not gonna lay down and take it anymore, and I don't have to. After I kind of received the general consensus from my landlord, I made the decision that it's probably best if I move my farm. Right now, Mermaid Mushrooms needs to find a new home. And it's going to take me several months, not only to find a place, I have to disassemble all of this and reassemble it somewhere else, and try to do that with very limited business interruption. I'm trying so hard to just keep pushing on, and keep going. And I'm never going to give up on this. Mermaid Mushrooms is who I am. It's not what I do. I am my business, and that might not make any sense. What you're going to see from this channel, I'm going to do a lot of really fun content. Some things about mushrooms, some things about cooking mushrooms. I'm going to obviously be disassembling my farm and moving it somewhere else, and we're going to document that process. First, there are a few things that I need to get off my chest. And so that's what the next few videos are going to cover. Moving the farm with just me and my son, this is going to be very difficult for us. And if you could find any way to support my farm and help us recover from this financial setback, that would be greatly appreciated. And that could be anything of subscribing to the channel, liking this video, dropping a comment down below. All of those things help out a lot. I'll include some links to where, if you do want to donate, you can always donate if you feel so inclined to do so. Also, buy our products, buy a t-shirt, buy a pink Oyster Pixie print, buy some tincture, like, subscribe, comment, donate, buy products, all of these things really help out my farm. And I appreciate you listening today. And I know it's been a lot. It's been a lot for me to even just record this. It's been very taxing. I'm so grateful that you spent this time with me today and that you've made it to the end of this video. Stay tuned. We'll see each other again soon. Spread the mycelium. Aloha.